So we have Matt's game. Now we're going to pull it from chess.com into Lichess. So Matt's gonna walk Matt through that, and then we're gonna analyze the game via Lichess studies, which are super useful. So we'll just break that all down. Okay, so Matt, here we are in chess.com. Now we need to take this game, and you can just share the game. So you see that on the bottom below it says plus, to the bottom right of the board, you see it says plus new, and then below that has the nodes just to well, basically it's just to the right of the 0 zeros below the board, right?
Yeah.
Right there, yeah. Click on that, and you should be able to take. You should be able to get the PGN from there, and you can make a GIF, which is kind of cool, or GIF, or whatever, where you can you can post it on your website or on Twitter or something. Okay, so click on that. No, you don't need to download it. Just click on the PGN. You could if you want to, but it's easier. Just copy and paste it. That's easier. So click on that. It should select all. Yeah, there you go. So copy, Control C, or whatever, Max C or whatever. So Control C, and now let's pull it over to Lichess. That's it. And we'll make our study, and you just paste your PGN. It's very simple. Okay, so let's make a new study. So we go to Learn Study, exactly. Drop down Learn. Okay, now plus in the top right. Your green plus. Yep. There we go. And then now you have a study. See, it just says generically Matt and MD study. You can say something. What's the game? What's the topic, or you have a particular game? You can put a date. I mean, whatever. You can change it. It's up to you. So you're Blitz foolish. Blitz foolishness. Okay. So that's fine. You can make it public or private or unlisted. You can make it share only, whatever you want to do. So if you do share only, you can add us to your study and we can edit it if you'd like. It's kind of like a Google. It's basically like the Google Doc of chess games. Pretty much what it is. Except there are no ads, or no, they're not taking your data apparently. Okay, so we have computer analysis and everyone. That's all fine. Okay, so start the study. That's all fine. You can play around with it if you want. Okay, you could just say chapter 1 if you want, and we could keep pulling in games. So you see where it says PGN on the right, top right, and then you just paste it. That's it. You just click on it, Control V. There you go. Create, and you can have, if you're white or black here. Are you white or black?
I don't remember. I think I was black.
Okay, so you can do orient. You can change it as well. So let's say you don't want it to be. Yeah, you're black here. So let's say you don't want it to be oriented. You can press F for flip, which is nice. Chess.com is X. I don't know why they use X for flip. You could say F, but just to show you, you would just go to the gear to the right of the 1-0 on the chapter on the top left, or almost top left. You can see
this gear.
Yeah, you would click on the gear to the right of the 1-0, the results of the game, and you would just be able to adjust that. You can edit that to be always oriented on your side. Not a big deal, but it's just useful, I think. See, orientation black. Down 1. Yeah. And then you may as well make it black, so you just see your side. Perfect. Okay, here we are. So we've just done a transfer from chess.com to lichess.org. I'm not sure if there's a way, at least I know from chessgames.com, you can copy the URL and you can paste it, because I guess they're kind of partners in that way. They're both, free websites and everything. So you can paste it in there when you create it. Or you can start from you can do the editor, I think it's called, or just empty board, and you can make the moves as you go. Now, if you do the editor, you can put in a specific position. You can set it up manually, or as you saw previously, you saw the FEN. The FEN is the exact position. It's using some code to state the exact position. So you would just paste the FEN in there, and then you would be able to work from that. So anyway, now we have a PGN, which is a complete game. And again, what you can also do is you can make it into an animation. So here we are, and you see the share button on the bottom of this. You have those nodes. You can share this if you want here, vice versa, right? Okay, so let's take a look at your game, and then we're going to look at the tools as we go. But it's very nice because if you make it public, you can access this anywhere. You just go on your page publicly, and you just click on it. It'll just be there. Should be there. You can look it up under studies. So now we're going to go through your game, and then as we go, we're seeing the moves on the bottom right. We're seeing the stats, and we've done in other videos, in other classes, we've looked at. Oh, it just went away. What we've looked at, you could do master games. You could look at games on Lichess based on rating that have just been played on Lichess, or you could look at your own games. But Matt, it went away. Can you reshare it?
Here.
Yeah, just reshare.
You can also add games from chessgames.com. of masters.
Right, that's what I was talking about, how you can copy, you could even copy, well, I'm pretty sure you can copy and paste the URL, or you can simply go down and highlight the PGN of the game and again, paste it just as you did. Okay, so Matt, are you able
So
to
what do you
reshare?
need me to do here?
You stopped share somehow. Can you start sharing the screen
Oh,
again?
you mean sorry. That's what you meant. I thought you meant
Yeah, not by, you could study the, yeah, pretty much the way I do it with my students is either they can be sharing screen, or one of us can be sharing screen, or one of us can be just sharing the study with each other. And then you look at and then the moves are just made because you choose the sync option. Okay, here we go. So let's go. Okay, so we have your game now. So we got what we wanted. And again, if you play on lead chess itself, all you would have to do is to the right of it, you would just say make study. You might need to click on the 3 lines, I forget, but you can pretty much, when you go to analysis board after your game, yeah, you should just see on the right make study, create into a study. So here we go. You just a more kind of laborious process, but not too bad. And now we're gonna look through your game. And again, as we go, you'll see functions on the bottom. Some of these features, like you see that the talk bubble thing. So you can put comments. You see the exclamation question mark below the black king. You can make symbols to say, oh, that's what they'll do in opening books, like the modern chess openings, for example. A lot of it's just based on, hey, this is a good line. You know, white's better, black has a slight advantage, black's winning. White has an attack, black has compensation with exchange. You know, this kind of thing. So that's all in there. It says like someone's in time pressure, so you don't need to write it all out. That's shorthand, effectively. But then you could kind of journal it. I think you might have mentioned that later, in terms of you could kind of journal it. So your game has a narrative, your own narrative, and then you can write a summary at the end, for example, and you can always come back to that, maybe before your tournaments and so forth. And then ideally, you would draw trends. If you're self-aware about it, you'd want to realize what you were thinking. Ideally, I think of it like a recording almost. What was I thinking on that move? And I would reiterate that. And then especially the main error. Why did I make that error? I would try to really be self-aware about that. That's where the comments are very useful. Or you could write down, here's my plan at this point, or this is why I made a mistake. And naturally, it's just kind of de facto when you put another line, and that's effectively, here's what could have happened. That's the point of sidelines. So a few moves in, you're like, oh, I don't like knight b2. Let me make knight c3 happen instead. And you could just explore it, or you can write at the end, this is a better line, or like, you know, say you have a better position with black or whatever. Okay, so let's go through it a bit.
So he started with b3.
So this is the Nimzo-Larsen variation. It can transpose into other things. Very flexible. Okay, d5 or e5. E5 is probably the most aggressive response. And let's look at the stats just to get a very rough idea. When you go back one, you can see, well, how do I want to respond to this? So even on the first move, you can get a sense. E5 is most popular. D5 is obvious. They both score about the same. But those are your two main moves against it. So you chose d5. That's fine.
I chose d5 because
e5 is most aggressive, but you're obviously asking for your e-pawn to be attacked after bishop e2. Now nothing's under attack. It's like a reversed, you know, it's like as if you play d4 with black and then they go queen's Indian like b6, e6 stuff. So let's see how white handles this. What do they do next? I imagine they fianchetto.
Fianchettos. And let's see, what did I do? Brought out the knight.
That should be okay because you also want e5. They're probably gonna try and pin your knight. If they know what they're doing, they'll probably go. I think the main thing to do would be e3 and bishop b5 to pin your knight. Let's see what they do. No, they went d3. So that's not really ideal. And let's see, there's no stats on this. No one did that. No masters did that. Now, if you could also look in the lead chess database, maybe some would do that. But let's and see, this is where you might want to make a sideline. So in the future, whether you're playing with black, just to know white's best move, what it should be, or if you're playing with white and you want to know, just for curiosity's sake, say, what's the best way to handle this position? And that way you see how masters handle things, and it just broadens your knowledge, right? So let's take a look.
Yeah.
So we're gonna make a.
So would you rather I have the masters database or just the whole lead chess?
No, this is fine. You have master. Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh, you're on lead. Yeah, do masters because you want to see. Ideally, you want to see the stronger. But no one did that, of course, because that's not the correct move. E3 is better. I would imagine E3 is the main move. Let's see. Maybe knight f3.
Back up.
Yeah, knight f3 or e3. Yeah, e3 is the main move. Interestingly, it doesn't score very well, but I think white would be doing okay. Sometimes it looks bad, but you have to take that with a grain of salt because it will be it's based on bad lines that white did. Now, if you go in a little deeper, you realize, hey, white did a good line 5 moves in, and suddenly white's scoring really well. So let's take a look. We got to dig into that a little bit. It might depend on the ratings of the players. It might depend on maybe the computer says something different. So you got to look at multiple variables when you're trying to figure this out. And that's why we have a dashboard with all these options. So E3, okay, now for example, E5. And so look at that. When E5 is a very natural aggressive move. And now we have our bishop E5. And it scores 1% better for white. But the point is it's a lot better for white than that original line that it showed, right? Once it begins to become weeded out. Because there are lines on the bottom that score better for black. We don't need to do that. They're not going to do that. Okay. So now bishop d6. Now this has become pretty standard line. Yeah, bishop d6, and we have the exact same score. So basically, I mean, the Nimzo-Larsen variation is not the most aggressive line for white. So white's not really going to get a huge advantage. But they do. But the benefit for white is they can know it better than black because that's their pet. That would be white's pet variation. You want to have usually black would have a pet variation, like in response to a Sicilian, for example. Okay, so it just gives you a sense, and just knowing that, hey, white can play f4 here. That's interesting. They can play f4 because of the diagonal. So you can even look at this. It's actually quite interesting. Let's look at 2 more moves deep. There's actually a little trick. If black thinks they have a trick, but white actually has a trick. See, look, let's say they take the pawn now. Let's say black takes the pawn thinking they're going to have a huge attack, and they're sacking the rook. Now, interestingly, the fact that the bishop has developed, if I recall, allows white to actually try to take the rook. So no one did that. Look, because there's queen h4 check, right? But it doesn't matter. Look, a lot of people will fall for this too. As in, it's funny because black thinks that white's falling for it by taking the pawn, but black is actually falling for it because white gets away with it. Look, bishop takes b2, bishop takes g7 rather. So b2 bishop takes. Now white's like, haha, I got you, queen h4 check. Here's the difference though. If there's no king f1, it's a problem. White just plays king f1. It's not that big of a deal. You need to have compensation for a rook down, right? Like rook for a pawn or something, right? But it's problem is knight f3 is coming. What's going to happen? Now, if the bishop were on f1, then the king would be more awkward, right? But now it's like, how do you get to the white king? It's not that obvious. Knight f3 is coming. Bishop g4 probably. Oh, even queen e1 to challenge the queen. So you can see, not that big of a deal. Check, and then now you can compare that with the computer evaluation as another source. As another variable that we can look at. So you press the computer eval. We don't want to become over dependent on it, but the computer eval is to the top right, is the X. So check that out. No, they were. All right. So yeah, so we have this one. Now what was the next move? Computer eval is +3. See, so it's saying white's up like equivalent of like a piece. Not a full rookie. I mean, obviously white, black is doing some stuff, taking the pawns, and you have to take some moves. You have to take the rook in a couple moves. You might get your bishop stuck in there. So, it's not like it's over yet. But yeah, white definitely gets the better of this. Black doesn't just win. Remember, because of bishop b5 being inserted. Now, if bishop b5 were not inserted, it would probably work. Anyway, that's just interesting. So as we go, we're like, oh, I know something more now, right? I mean, I happen to know that I'm showing you, but now you know it too, right? So you can dig into that. Right? It's kind of like asking, the sidelines are the hypotheticals, the what ifs. And that's why some of the best chess players are creative. Sorry. Yeah, that too. Curious. They're just curious. They say, wait, what if this? What if this? Just pure logic. What if this? What if this? In specific lines, but also just asking themselves particular candidate moves to even consider. Like to even think about allowing queen h4 check. A lot of people are like, oh, I've seen that. That's a trap. No, it's not a trap here. So black is the one getting trapped by thinking it's a trap. It's kind of interesting, right? Okay, so let's see what happened now. Let's go forward more.
Well, do you want to go through my game or
now,
this game?
We go. No. I mean, now we return to the game. So you click below this. Honestly, I don't actually love the way they do the sidelines. You see how there's gray where the sideline is on move 3. So we'll go back. Oh, hold on a second. Again, I'm using the sideline as an example. While we're here, we know that it says white's winning. We like white's position. You could even say, here's what I would say to be objective. I say white has a big advantage. You have to prove it to win, but it's very strong. Yeah, if pawn takes, you just take back. You don't get mate on f2. So let's go ahead now, make a symbol. So the symbol, the exclamation question mark below the black king. So click on that. There's a legend, right? Now you go down. So if you scroll down now, we see, it's up to you. What do you want to call it? Do you want to say white's winning or white's just doing better? Because I do think there's a lot to prove. It says +3, but again, from a human perspective, sure, it's complicated, but it's good for white, obviously. So you can say white's better or white's winning. What do you think? It's your analysis.
All right. So
Yeah,
where do
I
I
think
put
it's fair
that?
to say white's not. White
Oh,
will be winning if they play correctly for a few moves, but they have to deal with some little smoke here. Okay, so now we go back to the line. So that see the gray part was the sideline to see, hey, what if what if white does E3 and plays better than D3? So now they've played D3, so let's see what your reply is. Now you go E5, which looks correct. And again, we could probably verify that with a computer, but we could take off that computer thing if you want. So we have E5, but the difference is there's no more bishop B5. And first of all, it's redundant because you don't want to make too many moves. Look, the bishop's already come out to B2. He should be making, or they should be making a move to bring out the other bishop and the knights, right? So D3 is kind of unnecessary. If anything, E3 or G3, right? So anyway, and you can note that kind of thing with the commons. So knight F3, what do they do? Yeah, they go, okay, just press arrow right. So
knight
we have what
F3.
they did, knight F3. So now, yeah, they get an attack on the pawn, but that's easily dealt with. And see, there's not even F4 anymore as an option. See, F4 was a baity move. Now here, it's questionable. We'll figure out whether that's good or not. It's probably fine, but the only thing I'm thinking is whether you even need it yet, because it costs you a move, right? It's kind of like you could do it whenever you want. My inclination would be to still go bishop D6 or F6 or something like that. So my inclination would be to just develop, because you're blocking the bishop, but should you make a pawn move or a bishop move? Probably, oh, this has been played before, it was 50-50, but, and again, you'd have to look at the ratings. You have to look at what the ratings are. See, black was a higher rated player and won one of them. Anyway, so bishop D6, just useful to look at in the bottom right. So bishop D6, just develop, and then maybe knight F6 or knight G7 and castles, and you're good. D4 is okay, but you see you're spending another pawn move that you don't need to spend. Because let's say you can do it whenever you want, and if they ever strike at you with D4, then you could bypass and play E4, right? And they waste, and then they're the ones spending a bunch of pawn moves, and your pawn move gains a tempo on the knights. Anyway, I wouldn't be worried about it yet. And besides, when you go D4, they can chip at you with C3 or E3, see? So yeah, I think you can see that bishop D6 is probably better, right?
I see your point, yeah.
Yeah, it's just, the way I say it is, when in doubt, develop. That's what I tell myself too in my games. I'm not sure, they both look pretty good. I'm going to go for the developing move, especially if I know that it's not, the pawn move doesn't need to be played. So anyway, we're analyzing your game as we go, but just learning the Elite Chess study methods too. So E5, knight F3.
How do I get it to go back?
Yeah, now we're on the main line. Again, I would say my critique is I don't like that gray area where the sidelines are, because it's kind of, my suggestion to Elite Chess, I want to tell them somehow, but I think they should use a different color. You guys see what I mean? I think the move should be a different color, or it should be shaded a different color, like maybe a light blue or something. Because you see bishop D, you see it becomes confusing. And so, especially on different formats. I think on the phone, it was like going horizontally and they're all getting jumbled. And that's a problem that one of my students told me is in books, all these sidelines, it gets confusing. Usually it's parentheses in books. And that could get jumbled too. So I think that you see how it's indented. Move forward, the one that's not indented in the gray is the sideline, but again, it's kind of hard to see in my opinion. Very light and everything. Okay, so D4, maybe you could change the theme or something. Okay, so what do they do now? They don't react to it yet. They wanted to play knight BD2. I mean, it's playable, but they're not getting much out of this. You're doing fine. So knight BD2. Well, they won. We're going to see what you could have done.
Yeah,
okay.
I blundered later.
Yeah, it's probably based on what happened later. Okay, you go bishop b4. Yeah, bishop b4 looks pretty reasonable. Kind of start probing the position. And you're also stopping c3 at the moment. They could play a3 though. Okay, and then what do? They go g3. Okay, they're double fianchettoing, reasonable.
Yeah.
Yeah, also reasonable. And see, now you're finishing. So you both have 3 pieces out. You're both about to castle in a couple moves. Okay, bishop g2, and you both do castles. So you have a little bit of a space advantage, but you have to be careful because what are the squares that white is going after? Which kind of complex of squares does white want to latch onto and utilize for their pieces?
Looks to me like he's going for the black squares.
White or black?
Actually,
no. Actually, it could be both. It could be both. But the ones that he can utilize immediately. more readily anyway.
I guess the white squares are more open to him because, I've got his dark squared bishop bottled up with my pawns.
But in doing so, what was the drawback? It was a trade-off. So you're grabbing more dark squares and you're hoping to hold on to your D pawn probably to not trade it off. Now they will try to maybe chip at your dark squares, but for sure they've controlled. So that was the drawback. You exposed, for example, the diagonal. So they fianchetto naturally, and they have a lot of. They can go like knight G5 to E4 or something. Like eventually they move the knight, and then they unleash their bishop. And if they ever do, but see, that's the natural stuff. They have knight c4. That's naturally there for them. But then they also could play for dark squares by trying to show that your d pawn is kind of sticking its neck out. So they might go like e3 and maybe go rook e1 and just open up the e file, or hopefully for them just make you dissolve your center with e3/c3 like later on. Maybe rook c1 and c3. Does that make sense?
I can't track all that and visualize it that well.
We'll make a side. Let's see if it actually happens. But the point is, main thing is that white can go like, for example, knight c4. They're on some light squares. Knight c4 immediately attacks e5. They can move the bishop and unleash that bishop from g2. So the point is they can really start landing their pieces on light squares, largely due to the fact that you've pushed your d pawn, because you gave up. In other words, you gained space and you grabbed dark squares, but you gave up light squares. Because let's say you had instead like left it on d5 and supported it, then they're not gonna be able to come in anywhere yet. They'll try to, but you pushed your d pawn in order to block the bishop largely. So it's trade-offs, but just keep that in mind. You got to patrol those light squares a bit, but we'll see who strikes at whom here. Okay, now what? So you're just playing actively. That's reasonable. Kind of see if they want to move their pawns a lot and open themselves up. So sort of provocative. Okay, there you go.
Yeah.
So they're grabbing that the light squares, and now you can play b5. That would not be pleasant because they're going to take e5 and you're in trouble. They win the e pawn and they hit your knight on c6 and all that stuff. The rook is on the diagonal on a8, being exposed after b5. So you can't really go b5. You don't. You go, okay, you guard. Now hold on a second. So you sort of undevelop your bishop. You retreat it. You didn't need to though. You could. What's probably another move? So now again, sideline, trying to find a superior move that you could do. Again, you're not going to have this exact position, but you probably will have pretty similar themes that'll come up in the future with knight f3, knight c4, some way in which they're piling up on your e pawn or d pawn. And so rook e8.
Do you like that better?
Yeah, rook e8 because it develops rather than semi-undevelops, right? Fully undeveloped be bishop f8, although that, sometimes. Or bishop c8. That would probably not be a good idea, bishop c8. Rook e8, simply develop your rook, guard it, and hey, oh, you got to take off, Leia? All right, I'll see you next week. Take care. Oh, she already left. Okay, she wrote it on the chat. She has to go by 1. Okay, so yeah, you're just supporting the pawn, right? And hey, maybe you can push it later, then you expose your d pawn. So you're just trying to it's like a Benoni almost, although in a Benoni, the c pawn will be on c4, but it's similar to like Benoni idea, where you've pushed your d pawn forward. White would usually be the one to do that. So it's like, as we've talked about, reversed openings. And then so you just want to hold on to your center. But as you can see, white is utilizing the squares that have been exposed, like the c4 square. So now you guard it. Yeah, I'd say that would be better. And it looks like a pretty even position. Both sides have their ideas. And again, they will probably ultimately go for e3 or c3. Not now, because you're guarding c3 twice, but maybe they go rook c1. And that's what I was talking about. You see now white can go rook c1 and then c3 to strike at your bishop and pawn.
Hang on, sorry, I'm trying to multitask.
Okay, so, no, whenever you're ready, go back to it. So you see, okay, what is your next move? A4. Wait. Oh, you just
played A4.
Yeah, so at the moment, right now, they could go rook c1 if they want. That's just one plan. They can also go a3 and kick your bishop out, but they can certainly go, that might be a plan for white. Rook c1, c3, and just chip away at your pawn. It's a question of which rook. No, they can go the other way too. They can also play for e3, maybe both. But I think c3 is a pretty straightforward plan, and they're just trying to undermine your center. Does that make sense? I mean,
Yeah, I
you're
mean
fine, but they want
C3
to,
after the rook.
yeah, because C3 now you just take it because you can't take back with the bishop. Probably it would be hard to get it back. But now you know obviously C3 takes, bishop takes, trade bishops. But then white would be funny enough, that would be like an English or reverse Sicilian because the C pawn would be traded for the D pawn, become a reverse dragon actually. But C3 they can chip at that, open the C file, half open C file for the rook. So that's an interesting plan. I might think about that as white, right? Just something concrete that they could do. What do they do instead? So it's no. So in other words, it's we're looking at the rook e8 line. So it's something you could do with your rook and they could do with their rook. That would be pretty reasonable and concrete. Bishop d6 is fine. It's just probably not your best because it's not bringing out a new piece. It's retreating, right? So then what? They go a4.
Right.
Oh, and then I think you made a mistake. I think you made a mistake, which they may not have exploited. No, they didn't. They missed it. So 97 was a mistake. Why? Okay, look at it from here. Why is it going to be a mistake to play 97? And again, so basically this is a huge part of game analysis. It's just what's going on with the move I did. Let's evaluate that. And what's the better move? But in finding the better move, it helps us to evaluate the move and get deeper to the truth, to the truth of the position. Okay, that's what you got to do. That's what proper evaluation is, getting to the truth of the position. That's what chess is all about, right? What's going on in front of me? What's the best move? Why? Okay, what is my opponent trying to do? How do I stop him? So a4, then what?
He played a4, and well, I shuffled. Whoops, what did I do here? I shuffled my rook over to the b file. Oh, I guess I didn't here. What happened?
Oh wait, hold on. You went forward a little bit. So they took on.
Oh yeah, I got too far ahead.
Yeah.
So he played a4. There we go.
So this is their mistake, though. Oh, wait a second. No, knight e7 was a mistake because you've abandoned your e pawn. I think so. You played 97, didn't you? I saw that somewhere. Yeah, 97.
Yeah, yeah. That's my next move at this point.
So that's a mistake. Do you see why that's a mistake?
Well, he's over attacking the e pawn now.
Yeah, it was 2 versus 2, 2 attackers, 2 defenders. Now he's overwhelmed. Oh yeah, he's just 2 against 1. So they could go like simply take. Maybe can pick the knight. Probably knight c takes if they want. And that
what's interesting is.
Yeah, probably not c takes is fine. Either one might.
He doesn't say which. Oh, okay. So.
But after this move, that was not at all. So you kind of traded mistakes, right? Mutual mistake. Not like a full blunder, but mistake. It wasn't the end of the world. But no, I mean, you would have lost a whole pawn, and they could have won a whole pawn. So that cancels out, and now they didn't get it. And I'm tempted to take back with the pawn to open the c file to attack the c pawn. That might be a plan because you're entering the middle game, right? You're just getting out of the open. You want to make sure now you have a really concrete plan. So let's see, you're going to have knights against bishop, 2 knights against bishop and knight kind of thing, right? So you got to work against the bishop pair.
Yeah, my concern was
which actually shut down his bishop more. So that's interesting. What do you think you should do here?
Well, I mean, my sense is I kind of have to take back. Yeah, because I don't want to be down a piece.
Unless you have like bishop takes f3, that's a move. But yeah, you're going to take back. So the question is which one to take with. Now, like I said, c takes has its purpose because it opens up you get a half open c file. See that? Something concrete to work with, right?
Yeah, I didn't think about getting an open file as much as not. I was trying to avoid
doubled
messing up my pawn structure, and I kind of wanted to get my queen in and bring it over. This is kind of like a queen lift, if you will. I don't know if that's a term, but
yeah, for sure.
To get her over towards the king side, so she can start bearing down on
that. Now the thing is, are you there yet? Probably not. It's probably not justified to go for a king. You probably have to do a little more work. The other thing is that you can do it. It's fine because you played c5 in the game. It's completely fine. The c just something concrete. Now here's another concrete thing. How about after you take it, whichever way you take, how about knight to d5? That might have been one of your ideas in 97. I'm not sure, but knight, or just shift. You're trying to shift to the king. But the thing is, look at your pawn structure. It's more center oriented. So you don't quite, you can play like knight g4 later, Maybe you could play like queen d7, bishop h3. You could try, but with the reasonable defense by them, it shouldn't quite work yet, right? Because you don't have enough resources there.
Well,
Unless you have like
yeah,
f5 and e4 central breakthrough, e4 e3 or something that might cascade over to the king side. But even then, I would probably say that your play is more in the center, and your play revolves around having superior knights over bishops, because you have, like Jeremy Silman talked about, minor pieces, right? Interplay, cats and dogs, right? I don't think he was partial to cats. I'm not sure which one that was, bishops or knights, but yeah. So you're going to have superior minor pieces, right?
I still haven't read
Um,
Silman, but anyway.
oh, you got to read it. You got, especially now that he's died. Kind of in honor of him. You got to read his stuff now. Although his stuff was respected before he died. Because a lot of times, like, oh, you're not.
Oh
Well,
yeah,
that's usually with artwork, right? Where it doesn't get appreciated until after they die. No, his stuff was pretty well respected during his life too. But definitely a good read, like How to Read Amateur's Mind. I haven't read much of that. That's kind of like we would do. It's like a conversation with your student. How to reassess your chess, absolutely. But again, that's what we've talked about in the class, of course. Imbalances, right? So you have the double pawns, you have a space advantage. There's the bishop pair versus the knights, right? But now to really make your knight shine, you want knight E, or one of the knights, probably knight E d5. See that C file action? Knight to d5, rook to c8. Wouldn't you love to hop into c3 too, or win the c pawn? So you can envision an entire plan revolving around knight d5 and rook c8, right?
right.
Because
So
you
am I doing this
centralize.
right? Yeah. Okay.
So that would be right. Opening the C file, half of it, and therefore, now why the C file? Well, yeah, it makes sense. But the benefits of the half open C file, in particular, are that it's very consistent because they have a hole on C3, so you can support the knight to come into C3 or even B4. So basically, exploiting dark squares and trying to win the C pawn. But that's a very, as you can see now, it probably makes sense, right? When you look at it, like, whoa, that's really strong. Rook C8, maybe maybe queen C7, maybe knight D5 to B4, and you could, if nothing else, you just tie them down. Let's say you go knight C3 and they capture, your rook can take back, and then you triple up on the C file, or you go knight D5 and replace the rook with the knight, or just imagine your knight on D5 though, it's going to hit especially C3 and B4. So your knight just wants to swarm, and that's where you're going to show your superiority. Now, as for them, if I were playing with white, I'd probably be going knight to d2, unleashing my bishop immediately against the b7 pawn. Maybe even throwing a4 to a5 to a6, striking at the light squares as we were talking about. And maybe just give away my bishop, or no, stick it on a3 maybe. But the bishop on b2 is obviously not their greatest piece. So b3 is a move. I mean, c3 is a move as well. Always a move, c3, e3 to chip. But I think white's going to try to work around your pawns on light squares. I do like a5. I think a5 is interesting. Just probe your queen side. So you both might have some queen side play. And ultimately, you might have central play. Oh, check this out. What if you go knight fd5 and f5? Let's say you get your pawn on f5. Later on, you might go f4 or e4. So then you might start getting a king side attack. If you really want that king side, I could see it brewing up. f5, f4, right? So you have some ideas. Point is, then we're breaking down the position. And so we have a conceptual idea. Now that's how, a lot of masters, pretty much masters, approach a lot of positions. We can't calculate everything, right? Especially looking at GM. They're kind of just envisioning scenarios, different setups, right? So there might be a setup with a knight on d5 to b4 or c3 with the rooks piled up there. Maybe there's a setup with f5, f4 or f5, e4. So we don't know exactly, no one knows exactly how it's going to unfold. We're not, even a computer is pretty hard, right? But we're just thinking of different snapshots of different scenarios. So that's the kind of thing that you might write down in your commentary, right? Exploiting the hole on c3 and putting pressure on c2, and then your plan could revolve around that in addition to knight d5. Anyway, your move is fine. You have c5, but as you can see, it's a little less concrete. You'll have things to do, but it's less concrete. You see what I mean? Because after knight d5, you don't really have knight c3 as easily. I don't want to take back with the pawn on c3. I want to plant a piece on c3. But anyway, that's how you look at that's how I'd suggest looking at some of the nuances. Also, you have another plan here, c5 and b5. And so, for example, c5, you plant a pawn on b5, and then play c. So you try and play for the c4 break, which would also open up the c file. Does that make sense? So b5, basically trying to achieve c5 to c4 break. with the assistance of the B pawn. Does that make sense?
So
Take
you're
a while.
saying C5 and then B5, or am I
Yeah, you would have
misunderstanding?
to go A6 and B5. Then they would
Okay.
go A5 and make you. Yeah, it's a little tricky. Let me. Okay, hold on. I don't think I'm able to make arrows right now. I don't think you're allowing annotations. Not right now. No, I don't think so.
I
But
don't know
that's
what
okay.
I would
Don't worry
have
about
to
it.
do.
But the point is, yeah, you want C5, B5. So maybe A6, B5, C5, C4. There's a little glitch where little catch where they go A5, but you might have to go B6, A6, B6, A6, B5. Point is, you're going to roll your pawns on the queen side. So that's a plan. Queen side expansion, central expansion. Knight D5 has to come, I think. Your knight belongs on D5, just a good square. So yeah, that could be a plan. Yeah, A6, B5, C5, C4. Does that make sense?
It's not staying on.
There you go. And actually, when you do this, it's going to stay on that move. So you have this, you have your commentary. You can, if you right click, circle, it'll make a circle. So now you make, let's say you go back a move, arrow left. You come back again. Yeah, so you go arrow left. Now make arrow right again. And you see it's staying there for you. And the move, queen takes d6 on move 11, has a green circle next to it. What's written, the notation on the right. It has the circle. So you know that there's something going on there, some commentary. Okay, let's see now.
So he plays bishop a3, attacking my queen, which another reason I suppose I should have gone with the pawn.
No, but now you have c5. You did c5. So again, this is completely fine. It's just that I feel like the c takes move, it's a ready-made attack on the c file. As you can see, now you got to work a little more to create an attack. So interestingly, or ironically, by quote damaging your structure, it gave you the best play. Well, that's well. It's just another way of handling. It's just another idea around double pawns, knowing the benefits of the double pawns, and that would be a pretty good example of benefits. Here, you're just gonna have to work a little more to make some play happen. But you're squeezing them a little bit. You are squeezing them, but here you go with their light square play. Now they want your B pawn. So they got some play. They're trying, and now you see they're trying to utilize their bishops, try and make them again. There's the battle of the minor pieces, but I still really want your knight d5 to happen and come into c3, and that could get very tactical very soon. Knight d5, c3, hitting the queen and the e2 pawn, right? So that c3 square is just begging to be invaded. Yeah, sure. First you do that. Oh, but again, knight d5 would have blocked the bishop. So that was fine too. Again, there's a sideline. So let me give you a sideline now. So this would be probably a winning sideline for you. So let's say you want to knight the E knight to D5. So your other knight patrols the E4 square. Now, for example, let's say they make a natural move like knight to E4, which they wanted to do probably. So knight to E4, which is a blunder. Now you take their knight and you go knight C3, see? And that should be a winning position. Well, a huge advantage. Yeah, pretty much winning. I mean, huge advantage. You're going to win you see how you win their E pawn now? Unstoppable.
Not yet.
Okay.
Wait, what's he gonna
visualize that the bishop? Let's say the bishop takes. They don't have to shut down the bishop with the pawn. So just envision it. Try to look at it in your head, just as a
okay.
So let's say go back a move. So let's say the bishop before while it's still there for some more to give yourself a little more complication to deal with. So imagine the bishop takes the knight, and then what do? How do you win a pawn?
We said the E pawn, right?
Actually, yeah, you're going to win the E pawn. Imagine how that's going to happen. But again, you're making use of the weaknesses in their position urgently, right? You're bringing your knight in right away. You're taking their knight right away. You make your next move. So rook, again, rook b8's a slower move. So if you don't need to make the slow move, obviously you don't. I mean, rook b8 has its purpose, but of course I'd rather not play it, right? If I don't need to. So now what? I don't want to make a reactionary kind of move. So now what?
Well, that's what it. I mean, all I'm really seeing is pushing the F pawn to attack the bishop.
That's one thing, but that's a threat. But no, that's a good move because then they probably have to come back. Probably don't take your knight because then you're going to have a lot of light square play, and you kind of mate them with bishop h3. They'd have to play after you or something. But anyway, that's a
I don't know if you hear my dog. I can't hear you.
I definitely hear your dog. Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, we talk about dog and the cat, so we get the dog. Okay, cool. Okay, and then once you have that, once you've dealt with your dog, then feel free to reshare it again. But no, I love dogs. So it's all good. I'll get some water while you're doing that, actually. So intermission, little intermission. Intermission for dog and for water.
This can be edited out, right?
Probably not. So that's the way I am. Like, for example, with photography, I'm a snapshot, I guess you call it a snapshot photographer. I remember I took a history of photography class, so I forget who it was, but someone's like that, where it's, it's kind of like taking a Polaroid or like a disposable camera, and it's just as is, I just like to, it's kind of like with streaming too. You're not really gonna edit, stream, you're just doing it, right? And it's out there, and I just don't care. No, but it's organic that way, right? It's raw. So whatever it is, there's certain things you probably wouldn't include. But for the most part, it's like, hey, that's reality, right? Take a snapshot of reality and let it be there, So the reality is your dog was barking. That's fine. And we had an intermission. We can handle it, right?
Yeah, we had a delivery guy come, and of course that gets her attention. She has to tell everybody in the neighborhood that we're getting a delivery.
Oh, yeah, little announcement.
I don't even know what the delivery was. It's probably something for my wife.
Dog who cried, delivery man, or maybe. Well, then you won't really know when they're, unless it's in the middle of the night. I guess middle of the night is when you'd be more concerned, unless it's a squirrel or something. Anyway, so let's go back to it. But okay, try to find. While I grab the water, try to find what it is. So let's just say bishop takes or pawn takes. Doesn't make a difference. So you had one forcing move. But yeah, if we look at pawn takes, you'll see that you don't even have f5 as a forcing move. In terms of the least, well, you have capture checks. You have captures, and you have threats, and then you have quiet moves, which may lead to a threat. But so let's say they take with a pawn. What's the most forcing move you have at your disposal?
I take it now that it's what you've been trying to get me to play for a while is knight c3.
Right, which is exactly what you wanted. Now I'd probably prefer that move with the c-file pressure, but whatever, we'll make it work. Okay.
Because then he's got to do something to save his queen, and after he does that, then the e pawn is hanging, or at least it'll be protected, but by more material than I'd be giving up.
Well, yeah, that's nice. That's nice.
Plus, if I take with the knight, I take with check, and then well, I don't know what I do with the knight after that. Just sit there with it for a minute, I guess.
Yeah, but the good thing is that I would actually be thinking about that. I would be considering, hey, am I going to get my knight trapped on e2? Maybe. Maybe then, not here though, because again, you have your launch pad on c3. It's a launch pad, and it's a retreat square. It's it's a safety square, and it's still strong. But you can see how quickly the play can cascade from across the board. Oh wait, actually, this might be really bad for them. Well, let's say they play. Well, queen c1 gets forked. Queen e1's not playing. Queen e1, you could actually take with the bishop and trap the rook and pick up an exchange and a pawn. So queen e1's problematic. So the only move they have is maybe queen d2, at which point probably you could take with the bishop as well. I'd probably just take with the knight, check them, and then you just come back whenever you want. And then let's do your f5 move. Yeah, they take with check. Yeah, take with check first. If you go f5 first, they go bishop f3 and guard, and then you play f5 if you want. Why not? Toss an f5 for good measure.
Oh.
Yeah, it looks strong. And then you could bring your knight back at like bishop g2, or you could just you could bring your knight back. Oh, never mind. That's annoying. I mean, I don't know. I mean, maybe you have like pawn e4 right now. Oh yeah, that could be cool. Pawn e4. Then if they take your rook, you have bishop f3 mate, just for fun. You probably have to play like pawn f3. Anyway, that's just an idea. That's just a sideline. Yeah, that's just a fun little checkmate you can set up. Yeah. So that's a nice sideline. So again, like either you make it happen or it's just like, hey, in the future, you know that kind of thing is possible based on this, and you will get this sort of position. You know, C file play, weak C3 pawn. Maybe it's F file play, weak F3 square. I mean, weak C3 square, weak F3 square, weak C2 pawn, weak F2 pawn. So you're going to see this theme come up numerous times, right? And then all you have to do is just figure out how to handle it in the unique position in front of you, you know, in the future. So that's why it's so useful to look at these moves, right? Okay, so let's see what actually happens. So we'll go back again. We call that sample line. The sideline that's like very concrete, but there's also I would say like a sample line would be something that like maybe it wouldn't happen, but it's just an example of how the play might proceed. So again, like you don't need to calculate all that ahead of time. You'll just get a sense. What I would often do is if I'm trying to figure out if something works or not, like intuitively, I would be like, okay, let me look at a few different sample lines. Like, okay, that looks good, that looks good, that looks good. Now, I don't know for sure that's going to happen. All I know is that there's a pretty high probability it's going to work out because I have a lot of really nice lines. You know what I mean? If it's ambiguous and there are a lot of ways they can go, I can't calculate everything, but I can calculate a few lines. It's like taking a sample, like a biopsy or something, right? We get a sense. You might not know everything, but at least you get a sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. So now what?
So anyway, he pushed his queen up to d2 after I moved my rook. And so here I decided to chase his knight away because that's making me nervous.
Sure.
And
now
this isn't.
I'm not sure if it should make you nervous.
Well, I guess I mean, it's not. I realize it's not an immediate threat.
You want to deal?
I'm concerned about him invading my territory with his queen and getting, a checkmate there on H or F7.
Hey, he's not getting in there. That's the thing. He's not getting in, but the knight e4 idea is lingering, and that's where, similar to your knight c3 fork, if your knight's not there anymore to cover e4, knight e4, and then he wins the c5 pawn.
Right.
So I get it. Yeah, you just resolve the issue. Knight e4, you trade it off, and then, hey, let's do f5. So point is, like I said, c takes d6 gave you some concrete play, but it's not like you don't have any play. You had the c4 idea earlier, maybe in the future. You also have, again, f5 is a very natural idea. You might even insert bishop h3 if you feel like it. You get f5 in, and then you either go for e4 or f4. Pretty good attacking idea is f5, f4, right? Maybe just shove the f pawn down the board. f5, f3. Damn it! Hit him on the.
Look, that's what I did. I
nice,
still lost.
I mean, but you had a good idea. You had an idea. Point is, you have an idea. Trying to make it work. Now, what do we do here?
Well, I played f4.
Wait, hold on. Go back 1 second. Let me see something interesting.
I was trying to get that G file half open.
Yeah, you may not want to take it right away though. Yeah, I think you can insert that now. There's sometimes interesting moves where you throw e4 in, you toss in e4, they take, then you bypass with f4. I was just thinking, yeah, that's possible too, because then what you would do is you'd shut down their bishop too. Yeah, this is fine. So you go pawn f4, and then we can figure out what to do. I kind of like the idea of going pawn f3 soon. But here's the thing, you don't want to take, probably not, because then they would open up their rook and they'd start trading pieces. You could. I also like the idea of knight to f5. Knight f5 adds a little pressure. Yeah, either knight f, and we can check the computer now because I'm not really sure. There are a lot of interesting ideas. The computer will help us out to see some other ideas. So maybe, but look at those bishops. Now again, this is kind of similar to before. The light squared bishop is a great piece, right? It's an excellent piece for them. The dark squared bishop is a pretty bad piece, right?
That's moment, yeah.
Enough, hypothetically, technically speaking, the bishop on a3 is considered the good bishop because it's not blocked by its own pawns. And it is looking at your c pawn, which can work sometimes. So it's not terrible, but it's, for now anyway, it's way less active than the g2 bishop.
Yeah, but as soon as I move my queen, he can get it out.
Yeah, I think F3 is, let's see, how good is F3? It's there for you, you know. You might not do it yet, but F3 is in the air.
Well,
On
that's what I
F3.
did do.
Well, I think it's a matter of when you execute here. Because the thing is, you might want to take on G3, you might want F3, you might want knight F5 first. Well, think about, yeah, let's look at this knight F5 move too, because the idea of knight F5 that I'm seeing is that you would try to take on G3 and have the F pawn take. It's like, oh, the rook's there, opened up. But then you go knight E3, and you, rather than getting into C3, so you imagine a knight on F5 hopping into E3 after you exchange on G3. And the other thing is, if the H pawn takes, then we might try to do some stuff on the, you know, H5, H4, or shift over there. So, and the knight's looking at G3. So there's a lot of ideas there for you. Let's take a, I'm curious, see, this is where it's very complicated. And I might check the computer and be like, okay, what is the computer like in this previous, before F3? I don't know. I kind of like, I think it might be looking at F3 and knight F5, maybe something else. Let's see what it likes. I'm guessing it says it's pretty even. No, it likes you a lot. So it's looking at knight C6. No, that's weird, right? It's looking at knight C6 and then returning to E7. So that's a weird computer line, right? Like, why are you going to go to C6 and then go back to? No human's going to do that intentionally. And maybe you have to, but you wouldn't do that knowing that you're going to come back in the same line, right?
Unless you're trying to provoke something. I mean,
oh, true. I'm not sure what
I
he's
mean,
provoking. I'm not sure what that would be. I mean, it's, yeah, I'm not really sure what that would be. Maybe bishop d5 check, but obviously they don't have to go bishop d5 check. Okay, it's saying king g2. Let's see what happens. But then I would test it out and I'd be like, wait, what about the move I was looking at, knight f5? Does that do anything, you know? But remember, this is with apparently what it thinks is best play by white.
yeah.
Okay.
Oh. All right. So is this outlined white arrow just representing that that's what I did, or is it also saying that's an alternative move?
No. I think it's, yeah, it's a new thing. I think it's showing that's the line that actually occurred. And the
Okay.
knight d6 is the line that it likes. But I think you can adjust it with the 3 lines on the bottom right. We can take a look at that actually now that you mention it. So the 3 lines on the bottom right, yeah, you can say best move arrow, and then you have variation arrows. So that's what that's the one. F3 is the variation arrow, and there's your best move arrow, knight c6. I'm pretty sure you could do more than one too. Anyhow, and then you have annotations. So annotations, like if it thinks it's a good move, it'll give it, or if you say it's a good move in your analysis, it'll put an exclamation mark on the move on the board. So they're just different features. Okay, so let's go back. Oh, let's try knight f5 too. Let's take a look at knight f5 instead of, let's see what happens. Obviously it won't like it as much. No, it does not like it. Well, let's find out why. A5. Also H3 is there. Interesting. They have like H3, G4. I didn't look at that. At first I thought it was better for white. Now it says it's even. Might change its mind. Who knows?
Oh yeah, this could get.
See,
Oh, I thought he'd play here.
Yeah, maybe are they going to do it on the next move? They are going to do it. Yeah. So bishop d5 check. Maybe it's risky.
It's letting me off the hook.
Oh, and you're off the hook.
I don't get it.
Okay, what if they don't do that? What if they actually try and go G4? I feel like G4 is very exposing them. Maybe you have, oh, G4, maybe you would go queen G6. Oh, no, not now. I don't know. No, you could go queen G6. Well, the problem is they can't take because you have queen G6. Oh, no, you don't have it anymore. What would they do? Let's see. Let's say they take the bait. I want to play queen G6. That's what I'm thinking. No, you go, never mind. They would take the knight then. They can't take the bishop, they take the knight. Okay, so your knight comes into that nice square in h4 to look at the bishop. Okay, what do they take? Let's just say they take the bishop. I feel like your queen wants to wiggle. Oh, f3 now. Okay, I was thinking about that for a second. Now I want to, what, are we going to take back with the rook because they can't take it, they get forked, or are we going to bring our queen in the game? Let's say they take it. Just hypothetically say they take. what are we going to do? Rook f4, rook f5, rook f5 threatening rook g5. Makes sense? That looks pretty dangerous. Saying 1.5 points ahead for you, despite the fact that you're down a piece. Because you have a huge, I mean, look at their king side is in ruins.
That's what I was trying to accomplish.
Yeah, now
I
this would be
failed.
nice. And then you end up winning the bishop. They have to give up the queen base. They might have to give up the queen.
Well, the computer says they do.
That looks nice. I'll take it. How do we?
And this is
Yeah, you can
this
just
where
play
I
it out just for fun. You can play it out one more move, but then you either take the bishop on g2. I kind of want to keep my knight though, don't you? Because the bishop on g2 is pretty lame. I might want to keep my knight on f5. Now you. Oh, what you could do too. I think you can make multiple lines. That's if you want to get more technical about it. If you want to use the computer. So you see, I think it's on the top right. You see the gear on the top right below the bell. Yeah, there you go. So you can make multiple lines. Make it like 2 or 3. I think it's going to use more power, but more bandwidth. Let's see. So 3 out of 5. Okay, so here we go. Now, if you go back, so it's you could make different types of stockfish too. Like you can make more advanced, but this is good enough. This is fine. And now we see. Nope.
he's got
Funny enough, it does not see you see it right. It does not like my move knight f5. My suggestion, or at least one I want to explore. And then you could look into it and be like, why is that? Well, first of all, this move is more urgent, right? So basically, what are we getting here? We're getting, I mean, look, we have a rook and a bishop for a queen. That's pleasant. Oh, you know what it is? If you don't take the bishop, I think they play f4 and unleash the wrath of their bishop. Too bad you can't play it like queen g6, but okay. So now we want to get our rook involved too. So let's say they got to take back. And you see that's the big arrow. The fat arrow is king takes g2. The thinner arrow is h4, which is obviously not good because they don't get the piece back. Okay. Now once queen moves, it would be natural for me to use my rook here, wouldn't it? I think most humans would want to use the rook. Like rook f8, very natural, right? Queen e6 makes sense. Like,
that's
oh,
what I
queen
was.
e6. Well, queen e6 to f5 and rook f8. You could probably play rook f8 too. Oh, you want to do it immediately before they get on the e file. Now you have queen f5. So that's pretty dangerous. And you attack d3 and you have rook f8 attacking f3. Now probably queen f5 anyway. And they can't take your pawns, you take the bishop. They're just giving you the pawn. They're just dropping pawns now. And they're lost.
Oh wait.
I mean, what do they even do? It's pretty tough. Okay, let's say hypothetically, let's say they go rook ad1. Let's say they want to not give you their d pawn. They're already losing the f pawn. May as well not lose. Let's say rook ad. So look at, okay, fine. But
You
yeah,
said
take
D.
the I said D because you could, well, you take the f pawn, then the d pawn, maybe. Okay, fine. Let's say they decide, let's just say hypothetically, though, they don't want to lose the rook and they go rook d1. What's coming now? Oh, no. The bishop's hanging. You can't do it anymore. Yeah, they're lost. No, they would,
Yeah.
let's say, what you can do then, you're like, oh, never mind. What you can do is you can go back. There's another feature. So you say, no, never mind. Let me delete from here. So right click on queen f5 on the where it shows it on the right. See the blue one that's highlighted? So right click on queen f5. Yeah, I think it'd be a right click or just a click. Are you able to right click on it or depending on your Chromebook or whatever?
Well, the Chromebook, I'm not so accustomed to it.
Maybe double see
I
if mess
think
around with it.
it's.
Can you like double click on it or right click on it? There's probably like a key, like I don't know, some key
Well, I
you
thought
can,
it was shift click, but that
yeah, like
doesn't seem to be working. Control click.
something like that. But at any rate, what you could do in the future is if you click on it, I think it's a right click, but you could probably get like you could probably get like a you know, like a wireless mouse that might work with it. Oh, there you go. What'd you have to press? So delete that.
It was
Yeah.
alt click.
There it is. Okay. Let's try queen f5 again, and let's say rook ad1. Again, this is just a sample, but just to show how strong it is. I mean, we already know you're doing great. You're up material. You're up a queen for the pieces. Okay, so now you take the pawn, right? You don't get the rook, but let's see how it might continue. Rook fe1, for example. Let's say that they keep their eye on the d pawn. Now again, human move. Oh no, my bad. I mean the bishop's hanging. So now h4. We have to deal with the bishop
Yeah.
now. So h4. Well, that's nasty. Here comes the queen. And then pawn f3 maybe. I suppose there's going to be rook g1 though. Yeah, I mean the natural move is for
Well,
people
he can't do pawn. Or maybe you're speaking ahead, but
no, I was thinking about maybe black going f3, but then they go rook g1. Yeah, rook e8. Just get your rook in the game, and your queen could start doing stuff. But yeah, you're just gonna kind of like keep swinging around and make something happen, like rook g1, queen f3 maybe. You want to go bishop f6. Yeah, queen takes h5.
yeah, I
Yeah,
gotta be honest. I'd probably go with queen takes h5 just because I'd be nervous about him pushing
yeah, no, for
that
sure, for
pawn.
sure. No, queen. That's what I'm saying. Yeah, queen takes pawn. There's bishop f6. I guess we respond with g6 to that. Oh, that's funny. It doesn't. No, it doesn't care about that. Oh, that makes sense. King bishop f6. You have king f7. The rook can't take. You take the bishop. The bishop takes. You take the h pawn. Either way, it's pretty bad for them. See, king f. Oh, that's a nice move. King f7. I didn't think about that. I mean, you could always go g. I was looking at g6 at first, the defensive move.
Why
Yeah,
wouldn't he?
the point is they can't take your g pawn. They have to just retreat. Nothing happens. They just have to retreat. Then it's your move again.
Oh, they can't take because if they take, I take the rook back. Well, no.
If the rook takes, you take the bishop. If the bishop takes, you take the h pawn.
Oh, right. Okay.
Yeah.
Now I see it.
So yeah. So basically, they have to just go back to where they came from, and then it's your move again for like rook e2 or something. Just keep it. It likes queen f3. I mean, rook e2 looks good too, but whatever. Yeah, queen f3 is tempting. Why not? Because you keep an eye on the d pawn and the. Oh yeah, sure, absolutely. You look at the f pawn too. You're threatening the f pawn, and then you go by rook maybe rook e2 next. That makes sense. So again, like it's something I didn't think about. I mean, once I look at it more, I think, yeah, sure. Hopefully, I find that in the game. But something I wasn't thinking about. Computer says, I'm like, oh yeah, I like it. So use the computer as an aid there.
Yeah.
Then rook e2 decisive, and now finally the d pawn's going to fall. Now they probably have to play like rook, like some like rook g2 or king g2, and then you eat all the pawns basically.
Yeah.
And then
Okay.
so now we can look
And
at the game. So anyway, a
back
lot
to
of
the
that
real game.
is very common, but this is interesting because that was interesting because it's like, how do I proceed in this position to make an attack happen, right? Because ultimately this didn't lead to an attack, or didn't lead to as much as you wanted.
Well,
So it's
yeah.
like,
I mean, what happened? This was a blitz game, and
oh,
there was a
okay.
small increment, but I was down over a minute in time with like 20 seconds left on my
Oh,
clock, and he's
oh,
got a
okay.
minute and a half.
You're just making intuitive moves.
Yeah, at that point, I was just, you know, he I mean, ultimately, I didn't get checkmated or resign. I just ran out of time.
Oh,
Some of
okay.
that was trying to play on this Chromebook that I couldn't get the moves out right because it
All
doesn't
right.
have a mouse. It's got a
Okay. So in terms
trackpad.
of the results kind of moot then. It's more of just the analysis along the way.
Yeah, yeah. I just wanted to get your perspective on.
Yeah,
Plus,
there's a
this
lot.
was a convenient game I knew
Yeah,
from
yeah,
last night, and I knew I lost.
yeah. But in terms of no, I mean it ended up being just fine. Again, there's just different ideas. The c takes d6 idea, the knight c3 idea, a couple of different things. Like I would definitely go in for knight d5 though, so really emphasizing the knight d5 idea, right?
Where am I?
Things like that. But overall, you did great. Okay,
Knight
so that let's
d5.
see if the attack ended up yielding something then. Since you said you didn't really like lose positionally, maybe.
Well, I think I was in bad shape. I probably would have lost, but yeah, that was partly because I
I don't know.
was
I don't know. I mean,
short
you
on
take with the
time.
bishop. You take with the bishop. Let's say you take with the rook. You still target the d pawn after like queen g6. You could double your rooks. No, I think you're still fine. Yeah, they take your rook takes and you can double your rooks, right? That's pretty concrete. Okay, that's annoying. Oh,
Yeah,
maybe that's why the computer was looking at knight c6 just because that's annoying. But it's not like that's the end of the world. And you keep. Yeah, it's okay. And then you're gonna maybe I think still double your rooks. Or I kind of like the queen g6 idea. Yeah, exactly. I like queen g6 now to try and take the d pawn, right? Because you have three ideas. I think you have three ideas here. A few, I know, several ideas.
yeah. I wasn't
One
looking
is
at taking the
one
D
is
pawn so
tell me
much.
something. You tell me some of your. There's a lot of ideas. It's a very interesting decision. Tell me some of the ideas you have in this position.
Um, what I was hoping to do is like get my queen over to the G file, and then bring the knight in as well,
Uh-huh, uh-huh.
and position it either on H or F4. Four, yeah, four. So he couldn't do anything,
Yeah,
and
and then
possibly,
you might have like a rook move and then knight f3 check, fork the king and queen. You might have some g2 focal point attacks. You might even have like h5, h4 stuff. Okay, so there's queen g6.
and
There's
maybe I
also
should have. Well,
no queen g6 simply, a very direct. Again, if you win the d pawn, it looks nice. Like, probably winning. Like if you get queen g6 and rook takes g3, you fork the queen and bishop. They got to retreat to defend the bishop. Then you could start shoving your e pawn. Well, they do take the c pawn, but I do like you having the d and e pawn rolling after you take that. Another idea is you just play e4 as a sack. So, like for example, knight g6, e4 takes. Now, rather than going to h4, you just hop into e5. Oh, wait, by the way, no, my bad. It's not a sack at the moment because e4, when they take, your lateral attack on the bishop. So if you go e4, they take, rook takes h3, rook takes a3, right? You can also go knight g6, push. Like let's say the bishop moves to b2 or whatever. You push, they take. That's what would be more of a gambit line. Like sacrifice. Gambit's at the beginning, pretty much. Okay, takes and then knight to e5, hitting the c4 pawn. And then again, when the rook moves, like somewhere random, moves to the right, then you have knight f3 forking the king and the queen. So that could become really strong. Oh, by the way, queen g6, queen h5, right? Shift the queen to h5, start looking at the h pawn. There's a lot of stuff going on. A lot of attacking ideas.
yeah.
For them, what do they have? They attack on the c pawn, b file. That's about it. So basically, they're hoping for the queen. They're hoping for that queen side play. Okay, then what?
Well, anyway, we trade pawns here.
You got rook b5 coming to distract you.
Yeah.
Yeah, so they're getting the pawn most likely, unless you want to go rook c8. I would do queen g6 now. I would definitely go queen g6.
I mean, like I did.
You agree? You agree? Okay. Just
He
ignore the c.
takes.
You get your d punch. I hope you took the d pawns. That's very strong.
No, this is where I said I was not really paying a whole lot of attention to
You were
that.
time pressure.
Um,
You went rook 8 f7. Yeah, yeah. So go
well,
back
I was worried about him coming down with the rook and taking the knight.
king f7.
Um,
Yeah, you got king f. Well, let's see here. Well, they have to react. Let's see how that would go. If you took d3, well, then they have the annoying. Well, no matter what, they could do it anyway. But I would say, no, you're okay here. If you take d3, I think they might try queen to a5. Again, they're working that queen side. They're trying to win on the queen side and hope that they don't get mated. But you certainly have a lot of attack on the king side. See, like let's say they
yeah.
did that. If they had done that, queen a. See, it's not even suggesting that. If they had got, I mean, it's a very natural move, right? But the problem is in those situations, the queen abandons the king side and they're asking for it. Let's just say I'm just curious. Let's see what would happen. First of all, you got your e pawn roller, right? There might be some queen e4 action, some knight invasions. Let's see what happens just for fun. Let's quickly look at queen a5.
He
You
plays
got it.
queen a5.
No, I'm just curious. No, this is a sideline. Just stay there following up with this idea. Now it says you're doing really well at your knight c6. It really likes that knight c6 move. What's the idea? The cool thing is that they don't really have much of an attack either because your king is on h7. Just don't get back rank. Don't let them reach h8 with a rook or something. But just have to be a little careful. But it's going to take them a while to get there. I mean, again, as you can see, once you go rook f6 and guard your knight carefully, then yeah, they don't have any threats on you. They check, you just move your oh, the nice thing about knight c6 is it stops rook to b8. So you basically lock everything in and then you're ready for some more action on the king side. Plus, I really like e4 ideas, like e4, e3. Just steamroll them with your pawn, right? Try to get a pass pawn or breakthrough. So e4, e3 is very strong. Yeah, it's considering that as well as rook df3. Looking at rook df3 and then e4 in the next move. Yeah, then e4 and start steamrolling them. See, it's looking at like rook d7, rook c7, rook d7. It's looking at, oh, h5, h4, and some of the lines looking at e4. Anyway, that looks pretty nice. Computer says you're up 2.5 points, almost as if you're up a piece because your attack is so strong. But just the pawns speak for themselves, right? You have a passed pawn, can just rush the pawn down. But I also really like e4 at some point. Oh, it's not saying e4 now because the rook's looking. No, the rook's looking at the e pawn along with the bishop, the d pawn rather. So you're not ready yet. Yeah, not
Yeah.
yet. But you can. Yeah, but the point is,
Oh, would I?
rook seven, you could have done it, but point is, you have a huge attack. Yeah, h4, h5, h4 is strong. D3 is probably pretty strong. Lot of ideas here. Okay, so what happened? How did it finish? Got a lot of good analysis in there.
So let me see. Where were we?
Let's see if you get another chance to take their d pawn.
Wait a minute. Where were we?
We are on rook 8 f7. Yeah.
All right. So he does check. I get my king out of the way. Oh, he came back with the rook to attack the knight.
Funny enough, it's looking at e4 to hang the knight now. But I think your move is pretty reasonable. Only problem is that they're taking away your attackers now. Oh, it doesn't like it at all. Yeah, you're taking away some attackers. And do they take? That's where maybe it goes in the wrong direction. Let's see. Again, I don't think it's that bad. I don't think from a practical perspective, it's not so bad. Let's look at that. Let's look at how strong e4 becomes. Let's see. Because it's still like it's starting to like their position. But in general, e4 can be strong. But I think it's that your attack, it's tough to coordinate. But you see, interestingly, their queenside attack has yielded something because they got their rook and bishop in there. They're creating lateral threats and stuff. They're getting your attention. They're not letting you do what you want just yet. So that's interesting. Okay, so you end up going, yeah. So basically, your attack fizzles out a little bit. I mean, they're only up a pawn right now, right? They might win another pawn. No, they're only up a pawn, and you still have some attack.
Oh.
So from a practical, yeah, you just got to take back, right? So from a practical perspective, it's not that bad. You just gotta, you gotta guard your rook. Oh, I like that queen h5 move. It's trappy. Queen h5 to go rook takes g3 check and win the queen.
Oh, darn.
That might be. What'd you do in the game? No, not it.
Oh, I moved the knight, which was.
That says it's the best. Yeah, knight h4 is one of your ideas, but I do think that queen h5 that could have worked maybe because although your opponent's playing pretty well, you guys are not playing like 900s. I'll say that. and besides, Lee chess is known to be inflated, so that would be like a 700 or something.
Well, this was, remember, the chess.com ratings, but anyway.
Oh, chess.com.
And
yeah,
Blitz.
Chess.com is not. Chess.com is probably a little more realistic than Lee chess. Although funny enough, puzzles are the opposite because I'm telling you, those chess.com puzzles, they might be at 2600 level, like some of my students were showing me. I'm like, I don't want to make them feel bad about it. Like, look, good job, you solved it. But those chess.com puzzles are often super elementary. And then we were looking at Lee chess puzzle, like, whoa, that was super subtle, like a 2400 level puzzle. Like that could have been a 28. On chess.com, that's like a 35, and I don't know, that's like a 3200. But it was
chess.com's puzzles.
The hardest ones are the subtle ones, not the direct. Check. What's that?
I do just chess.com's puzzles don't. I mean, the ratings don't make sense to me. I see mate in ones that I see right away. And
they're
it's like
what level?
2200.
No, it's ridiculous. That could be. That should be like that could be a 1200. That could be a 1200. Yeah.
Right, and then sometimes, I get one where I sit there and, in theory you're supposed to see it in a couple of seconds or something, but I spend 2 minutes on it and I don't get it and I get it wrong, and it's rated 1700 or something. I'm just like, this is crazy.
It's weird. I think it's been because there's been this influx of players. I don't know. It's weird. Yeah. So it got inflated because of the influx or something. Because they used to be pretty. I remember they used to be pretty hard. Like I was having trouble. It's like, well, 23. I'm like, yeah, the 2400. Oh, that was tough to get to 24, and then 25, and then it started getting up 26. It was still relatively hard to get to 2800. I'm like, no. I ended up then it got easier. I'm like, okay, they're not getting any harder than that level. Now I'm like 3100. But people get even higher because it's like they're not getting harder. You just need to have a good solving percentage. They're pretty hard, but they're very solvable. Whereas if you look at a book, you'll have like some that are like my coach Jacobian from high school. Like he had this Russian, he spoke Armenian, and he spoke Russian, and it's like some Russian book, right? And they're like composed puzzles that are like really tricky. So they're designed like I think the chess.com's like randomized or something. I don't know, like AI or who knows what. Lee chess are taken from actual games, which is pretty cool, and they just get really hard. Or like it'll be a little thing where you're like, oh, I got him. It's like, oh, I didn't look at the fact that they can like throw in his wish and zoom or like throw the knight at me and have a check and they clog things up and like they sack material back. See, that's the harder stuff. The hardest stuff is where you have to anticipate these tricky moves by your opponent. It's not a one-way street, right? If you think it's a one-way street, that's more like chess.com puzzles. The hardest ones are purely defensive moves. Like I'm not thinking of a defensive move, I want to attack you because you think that's what a puzzle is, right? The defensive puzzles are the hardest. Okay, it only goes on for a few more moves. I guess you lose on time.
Yeah, I
Okay,
lost on time.
you do lose a piece. Yeah, I think you
Yeah,
missed I think Queen H5 would have been. I mean, like again, they had defenses, but Queen H5 would have put up some pretty good resistance. Okay, saying the best
yeah,
move is King A. Oh, you got to get off the pin. King H8. Okay, what'd you do in
yeah.
the game?
I gave check. He moved
Yeah,
out.
yeah. I think it fizzled out by that point. You were doing really.
He
No, you had some stuff going along. It
at
was
that
going.
point, I'm down to like 5 seconds, and I'm just like, I need a safe move, So I pushed the pawn because it was hanging.
Right,
Um,
you're down to 5 seconds with 4 points down on the board, so it's tough, and you don't have a
right.
mate. Yeah, yeah,
So and then that's it pretty
yeah.
much. I
No,
get
that's
the
fair. But you had your shot. You had a few shots at him.
yeah
Let's see the performance of your game. So now you can see again. Well, you could do this under game analysis, but you can also do this from study, I think. So if you press the computer, if you go on the bottom, it has the chart next to the
this.
exclamation mark. Yeah, I think that's going to give you your computer analysis. Let's scroll down. Yeah, request computer analysis. It should do that for you right away. And you'll kind of see it as it's going where it started showing you.
Yeah.
I'm not seeing it now, but I'm not sure if it
Well,
does.
it's still drawing the little ponies, so it's
Yeah,
still thinking about it.
usually it'll like show a chart as it's like make a graph as it's doing it.
Oh,
It's either your computer or the server or both.
could
Anyway,
be one.
yeah. So you see, so do you have a good sense now of how to do the studies and how useful they could be? Okay, now it's done.
This has
So
helped. Yeah.
it says you have okay. It's giving them 99% accuracy because they made some straightforward moves at the end. Let's see. Well, like I said, they're at 900 and playing really well. Who knows? If I see a 97% accuracy, I'm like, okay, they're cheating. But let's see. It says 88% as of now. But let's see how once it
Yeah, it
flushes,
seems to
flushing
have
it out.
settled in.
It's filling it in. Yeah, it's kind of funny. I think it does like the beginning and the end. Then it works its way toward the middle. It looks like it. So they had one blunder here. You had three blunders. I mean, still in the 80s, but it doesn't seem like. Is it progressing? Oh, sometimes it doesn't show you the completed chart. You might have to refresh the page. Refresh your web page. It might be done, but it just looks like it's not. Is it done? You can go back to the. Yeah, it has a check mark. I think that means it does that sometimes. It's a little glitch, I guess.
There it is.
Okay, they have 88. You have 81. A little suspicious for a 900. I mean, because they only blundered once. Yours is more logical, more normal, three blunders, more like a human, but still 80s. What is, well, basically it's translating the cent upon loss, I guess, into percentage, which is all, I mean, very rough, right? But very, very
Yeah.
like ballparking it. But the cent upon loss is pretty useful. You kind of use that as a metric, like as a baseline. So it's like, okay, like one of my students, she was getting 120, 110. And then now you start seeing her get 50, 30. So you're like, okay, well, objectively speaking, based on what the computer thinks, I'm playing a lot more accurate than I was a year ago, right? I'm going from 100 to 50 and less. So, but
Yeah.
basically, really strong players were looking 10 to 20, or 8, 12, something like that. But it depends on how complicated the game is. Like this was a murky game. If it's like often Kramnik would kind of play solid, Catalan, Queen's Gambit type stuff, just play really solidly, pick off a pawn, win a nice end game. Okay, now we're looking at like below 10 because there were no complications. Now Bobby Fischer had more complicated games, and he's not going to find all the computer moves all the time. Although he came pretty damn close a lot of the time. But point is that even if he's like maybe better than some of the top players, it's one of the greatest of all time, but it might not show up. I think when they did the accuracy, he's still pretty high up there, along with like, Carlsen. I think Carlsen, Kramnik, Capablanca. I think Capablanca is up there. I forget the others. Maybe Kasparov.
Kasparov.
think Kasparov's up there, I think, when they looked at the accuracy. Oh yeah, Karpov. Karpov, I mean, because Karpov again, not really adventurous play. Very rarely would he get adventurous, unless maybe he's trying to crush a 2300 or like 2400. Maybe then he would go all out to make sure he got the win. But if he's playing a 2700, he would just kind of play safely and be like, all right, if I draw, I draw. Kind of the traditional thing of like, okay, play to win with white, draw with black, play for equality, and if you get something, you get it. If not, you take your draw. But I would imagine against lower rated players, he might go for press for a win. But he'll just play a comfortable end game and not play his opponent. Anyway, yes, is that helpful to see how the studies work?
Yeah.
So now you can do that. But it's also just super easy to set up. It's very nice. You can organize it. So for example, you can make a study. See, it says chapter 1. So you can make a study of like, here are my chess.com games or something. Or you can categorize it like, here is the, a particular opening, like, oh, here's the King's Gambit, Queen's Gambit, Catalan, whatever it is. Yeah, so you can categorize it like that. You can put them all in one study. You can be like, okay, I'm studying. Yeah, you're studying an opening, or like studying, Capablanca games. Here's a study of all Capablanca games or positional games or something. So anyway, and like I said, if you make it public, you could be on like a library computer and you'd be like, okay, let me look up my name on leadchess.org, or look under studies and like, okay, I'm gonna search for my name on the studies. Here are all my studies. So you don't even have to sign in, which is just makes it easy for you. They have no profit incentives. So they just want to make it easy. You don't need to sign in and look at ads, So anyway, yeah, now you could use that. Cool.
Okay.
You got any thoughts about it?
I'm still absorbing.
Yeah, but not
Other than I should take a lot of my games, probably even especially my tournament games, although I haven't played a tournament since last summer, and get them into here and at least get the computer analysis. Where did I screw up?
Yeah, I often haven't done that, but I'm starting now. Like for example, in the Eastern Open, I was religious about it, making sure I got all my games in there as I was going. Figured out the first couple games, and I think I told you I had a nice winning streak after the first two. So I just, was just consistent. And while in there, do my analysis quickly after each game. Like, okay, I know what I need to do to improve. So you can adjust during a tournament. Cool.
So was this?
Oh, I'll stop the share. I'm gonna stop the recording. Hold on.
Oh yeah.
Stop that. All right.
So is this like